Hey everyone, and welcome back to a very special episode of Canadian Gamers. I'm here with Steven, and we are actually going to have a celebratory episode talking about I was just going to say 100 years, but no, our 100th episode. I can't believe it's been 100 episodes. It's insane. I never imagined we would actually be here. And Steven, the brains behind the operation, as he likes to say, and it's true, it's very true, he thought it would be a cool idea to just talk about, the 100 sort of episode milestone and just the different things that have happened over this ridiculously wacky journey. So I will throw it over to you to say a couple of words.
Yeah, I was just recently listening back because I think our first original 38 or 39 episodes are still available on iTunes and podcast services, and I listened to the first episode. And it's funny because in the first 30 seconds you mentioned that we were going to change the name of this. And here we are 100 episodes later and it's still called Canadian Gamers. I always loved that name. I don't know if probably no one remembers besides Jared, but we used to be a very, very old, crappy video game website back in the 2000s. I don't know when we started. I always had this ridiculous obsession with making sure we differentiate ourselves from the others as Canadian for some reason. So I would always, when I would write things like favorite or color and stuff like that in my reviews, I would always write them the Canadian way, and it would piss off Jared or William, was it? Anyway, yeah, I always wanted. So when we did this podcast, when we started it, and as usual, Jared didn't have a name. He's not very creative, and the podcast they used to do what was called something like I have something to say, or I don't remember what it was called, but it was something like that. So when we started this, I said, why not just call it Canadian Gamers for now, and we'll figure something out later. And that's how this became to be. Became to be is probably something that people say, right?
Of course. That's actually the Shakespearean way of saying it.
As I've noticed, my sound was horrible in the beginning. I could not listen to the first episode for more than 2 minutes because I could not bear the sound that I had. The audio quality was terrible. But I do believe that my speaking capabilities, although it doesn't show for first-time listeners, have massively improved since I've started doing this. I used to be terrible at speaking English. I still am, but I'm a lot better. And I'd like to think that I'm a lot better than most people would be if they would try to speak my language. So at least there's that in terms of improvement. But the audio quality has come way far since then.
Okay, so now I have to comment here. I have no choice. So as you can tell, Steven is clearly the brains behind the operation, because exactly this was his idea. This to call it this, and we'll talk about the format because the format was hilarious before. But in terms of audio quality and stuff, it's funny you say that because this all started on my original MacBook Pro from way back, and you can actually tell because if you listen to the somewhat longer podcast, you'll actually hear what sounds like a jet plane taking off because the fan would kick in and it would be while I was speaking. And seriously, because we'll talk about when we actually launched and stuff like that, but this current setup is only from about maybe 2012, 2011, somewhere around there. Before that, it was on my MacBook, and yeah. So if you want to laugh, take a listen to some of those older episodes, and even the older videos. If you take a look at some of the very, very old vlogs that we used to do, that I used to do, you can tell that the lighting is just awful, and the sound is terrible, and you've got all this stupid background noise from this damn fan. But you just reminded me of that. And the thing is with Steven here, what you probably don't know, is I used to bug this guy all the time, and I still do, because there's nothing wrong with the language. Like, him speaking English is about 5 times better than me speaking French, I'll tell you that. But it's his confidence in going for like prolonged amounts of time just speaking. He was always like, oh, it's not good, it sucks, I'm gonna have to, like, think of words and this and that. And people don't understand that when you do a podcast, even for all of you listening, if English is your first language, it's actually very hard to do. And my consulting partner realized this when we had to record I think it was like a 12-minute video for a presentation that was going to be given somewhere in Canada. I don't remember all the details of it. But what was so funny is he couldn't do it. Like, he just couldn't do it. He was constantly going, and people don't realize just how difficult it is to put together a podcast that's entertaining and interesting and natural and fluid without having pauses every 10 seconds. And we still do it. I mean, we're not professionals here, but I think that's the thing that you improved upon more so than anything else, was just getting comfortable being in front of a microphone and talking. And you can really tell when you go back and listen to those. Like, you've done your own solo podcast now. Like, you never would have done that before, or you would have, but it would have been really choppy, and it just wouldn't have been as smooth.
I would have never had the confidence to do that earlier.
Well, that's it.
Like, the problem I have is it's kind of similar to writer's block, but very different, is that there are moments or sequences when you lose your train of thought, or you try to find a word, especially when I'm trying to find a specific word in English, and I can't find it, and then seconds goes by, and those seconds of silence, they feel like minutes and hours for me, and then I'm under pressure, and I'm like, oh crap, I need to start this whole thing again because of, like, I just screwed up or whatever. It's just, I'm always afraid of those moments of silence when I'm trying to find my thoughts or a specific word, and I don't know why. It's always been my fear.
Yeah, well,
doing these things.
It's not you, man. That is a language thing. Like, people constantly look at me. They're like, I'm speaking to you in French. So they're like, clearly you understand because you're doing everything I'm telling you. And then they're perplexed. They're like, why don't you speak French more? And it's exactly what you just said. It's because when I'm looking for certain words or phrases or sentences or whatever, it's exactly what you just said. I find myself, pausing for a minute, and that's it. Like, anyone who knows me, and all of you guys, you know that I don't have trouble talking. Like, that's the one thing I don't have problems with. So when I do have problems with that, it's exactly like you. It seems like it's been 3 months I haven't spoken. And it's like, like, you feel weird. So I completely understand that. And I wanted to give you extra kudos. That's why I explained the story with another native English speaker who couldn't do this. So even if you speak in English, it's not an easy thing to do. And I really think people, they underestimate the challenge of putting together one of these shows. Like I said, I mean, we're not professionals. We're not, the greatest people in the universe here at doing this. But I think we've come a long, long way. And you deserve a lot of kudos. In fact, you deserve, like, all the kudos for this, because Stephen was the one that said, let's actually structure this. And we'll talk a little bit about the history and all that jazz. But it really was him that came back and said, why don't we make this like, bi-monthly? And why don't we actually have like some sort of structure to this, so that we're not just randomly talking about whatever is up our ass type of deal, it was a big thing.
Yeah, because I noticed that in the beginning we had episodes. Sometimes we had like 3 or 4 episodes in a week, there's even a point where we had 2 episodes in one day, although that was during E3. It's like zero. We had zero structure, and even today, it's debatable whether we have one at some point. But my goal was always to have a weekly podcast, and maybe we'll get there one day because, like I said, the older I'm getting, the less opportunity I have to explore this hobby of mine, and the less people I have to communicate with that. So the only person basically that I talk about video games is you, and the only time I can interact with the community about stuff is when I do videos for the site or when I have this podcast. So that's something that I really love doing in my life. That's something that's a lot of fun, because when I try to talk about video games to my wife or my girlfriend, whatever, it's like talking to a wall. Like, she tries sometimes to show interest, but you can see that it goes away very, very quickly. So that's why I usually text you like 1,500 times a day calling you a monster, because I need a friend to talk about games.
Yeah, and honestly, man, it's the same with me. I don't have very many people in my life, and wow, this is gonna sound depressing, but no, but it's true. It's like a lot of the people I've known moved away, and everybody got their families, and then careers became like the big thing that everyone was doing. Even myself, like we were just talking about it the other day, like I've got to start to be careful because my life is getting completely consumed by work, and what the hell, like it's getting out of control, let's just say. And it's true, like the only person that I can talk to about any of this is you and the larger community. And I mean, Ahmed is good too, like he chimes in, we text each other, which is nice, but it's, you know, like he's on the other side of the planet, for God's sakes, which is, it's sad. But with you, like you're a local Canadian, so like whatever happens here with us, it affects like the two of us. And Tim, I can't forget Tim. Tim, poor guy, he's so funny. He's gonna give us shit for this too. He's gonna be like, "You guys are always doing the podcast without me."
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's so funny.
He doesn't realize though that it's like 5 a.m. in Los Angeles right now.
Yeah, I know.
So
that's what I told him.
I don't think he'd like us to wake him up.
No, that's exactly what I told him, and he's such a funny guy. So he's been doing like all the streaming stuff, and you know, good for him. I mean, if people are enjoying it, that's why I gave him access to the Twitch stream. I said, you know what, man, like my schedule is so screwed up right now. Go for it. If you really want to do that, go for it. And I don't know, it must be working because we're getting more and more and more Twitch followers. So, you know, thanks, Tim. But where were we? I just lost my train of thought. Where the hell were we just going?
You were talking about the text you enjoyed talking to me, Tim.
Yeah. No, so yeah, it's just that. That's it. I mean, I think it's natural.
And can I quickly just say, Ahmed, I know your name is pronounced Ahmed or something.
Yeah,
I just have
Ahmed,
trouble.
Ahmed Mosley.
Yeah, I have really trouble pronouncing. That's why it's not me disrespecting your name. It's just I have lots of. It's like the letter or the number 3. Like I know it when I'm saying it. It sounds like the
tree,
a plant, but yeah, it's just how my mouth works for some reason.
It's actually nothing to do with you. It's the way your tongue has been. How can I say this? Brainwashed for years and years and years as a francophone. It's actually no. I'm serious. It has nothing to do with.
And I'm glad that the community has been really nice. There's only been one that I've noticed in all my videos and all the stuff I've done that has laughed about that accent of mine, and then somebody else, which I'd never know, called him a racist right after that. So it was like. Our community is fantastic. Yeah,
well, thank you for mentioning that, because that's one thing I didn't want to forget, and that is exactly what you said. So I share that sentiment. The community that we have is like second to none, and we get a lot of comments from people saying, you know, I wish you guys had more views and more subs and this and that and everything else. And in the end, though, it's like I don't know if that's something I want. And I'm serious about that. Like, I mean, think about it. Right now, we get comments from people asking us legitimate questions, or people saying, hey guys, that was a great episode. You're both insane. You know, things like that. Yeah. But the more people that get involved, the more you're going to start with sexist, racist comments and all that sort of stuff. And the two of us, we're just two guys. Like, we're just two regular people. We both have day jobs. We both have, you know, well, sort of lives. One of us, anyway. and when you read a comment that's like, you know, oh, you're the scum of the earth, I wish you would be dead, type of thing, it's like, wow. Like, it hurts us a lot more. Well, okay, maybe not a lot more than these so-called celebrities or whatever. But it's just, we're just regular people, and to read something like that, it is harsh. Yeah. And we both have experienced that. Where
it's gotten a lot. I've gotten a lot better with time. The first really hard one that I took it personally was when I did the Last of Us article on the old blog, and I compared it to Resident Evil 4 because Resident Evil 4 was and still is one of the most important games that I have, and the guy just ripped me apart. It was clear that he had an agenda. It was now I don't care about it anymore, but at the time it really hit me hard. And there are still some comments like that. Like the other day, a few podcasts ago, there was a guy calling me a troll and laughing at the fact that I had children and that I wanted Pokemon to change. For some reason, I don't know what it was, but he clearly was a troll and had issues. So from now on, like, when I see stuff like that, I just ignore it. And that's what I talked to you about last time, because I think you and Ahmed tried to reason with that guy. But from now on, if someone is trolling or just, like, I have zero issues if you don't agree with me and you want to have a discussion about it, or you just want to say you don't agree with me and here's why. But if you call me names and stuff like that, or call Jared names, I'm not going to respect that anymore. And like, I've defended you in the past in some comments, but now I think I'm just going to ignore those, because like, that's what they want. Clearly they just want.
No, man, c'est ça, exactly. Like, this is exactly what they want, and that's why for like years I've been doing that. And sometimes I'll chime in and stuff, but for those that don't know, Steven is actually a really good debater. He's very good at you know, countering your points and stuff like that, which is a good thing. But you have to do it in such a way that it doesn't turn into this, you know, this personal attack, or if you have like a vendetta against someone or something. Like, we're not gonna put up with any of that crap.
Yeah, because I don't mind if Jared calls me an idiot and something, because he's my friend. Like when I text him, the text I sent him, I would never send to a total stranger. You know,
right?
So if you have to act like that in the comments, in my opinion. Like, I won't comment on a video of someone I don't know with an opinion calling him an ass, but I'll do that in Jared's video, no problem, because he knows me and I know it won't hurt him.
No, exactly. And we've even had a situation in the past where this was a while ago. I actually looked for it and I couldn't find it. And it was, I don't remember if it was you or me, but one of us said something like that. And one of the people from the community actually like tried to defend and was like, hey, that's not very nice. The person did, like, you know, they're trying to do something and blah, blah, blah. And one of us replied to that person, was like, we're the two guys on the podcast. So it was pretty funny. And that's the other thing that I noticed that happens all the time, is that people watch like some of the videos with Justin or like with Tim, and they all think we're the same person. So I think it's really funny. Okay, so do you want to go back and actually talk about some of the like the dates that you wanted me to get?
Let's go. Let's do that.
Okay, so Canadian Gamers officially launched on iTunes. Sorry, I'm just looking. I've got a whole bunch of stuff. On February 14th, 2002. I guess Steven was trying to be romantic.
It's 2012, I believe, not 2002.
No, yeah.
2002?
2002.
That's impossible.
Well, that's what it says on my phone.
2002, I was... That's... Wait a minute. That doesn't
I kid
sound
you
right.
not. I knew you were going to say something. Here, I will show you. Do. I have the podcast thing opened right now. Okay? So it says all episodes. You scroll.
Yeah,
all
it's
the way
2012, dude. It's 14 February
down.
2012.
Come on, yeah.
Yeah, I knew that sounded impossible.
You're like, I was 12. Okay, yeah, sorry, 12. Why did I do that? Dumbass. Okay, like maybe, yeah, the rest of the year's work. Okay, boom. So, but still, it still works. February 14.
So on Valentine's Day.
Why did we do this on Valentine's Day? I don't know why we did that, but whatever. So that was the first episode. We talked about Resident Evil Revelations and such amazing things like the Vita and Final Fantasy 13 2. Yeah, I should have told me something was wrong with the date.
Actually, I remember that episode because I had just played Resident Evil Revelations on my 3DS and my heart was still pumping, I believe. But I won't go back and listen to it because the audio is complete crap.
Yeah, well, I'm amazed like anybody listened to our garbage back then. And it wasn't bad though, man. Like the launch episode was 33 minutes. I was like, that's not so bad. That's really not so bad.
Yeah, after that it gets
I know it gets crazy.
Funny.
We have like one that's like 10 minutes or something. It's like, what a great podcast. What else do we have here? I've got... Okay, so when I looked on YouTube, this is possible. It is possible that I screwed up in the playlist, but I don't think so because I've got a couple of dates here. So excuse me, on June 5th, 2012, we had what I could find is our first YouTube podcast, which was called Canadian and Lone Saudi Gamers, E3 2012 Sony press conference. And then we did a bunch of other, press conferences and stuff like that. But that was when we were actually there, if I'm not mistaken. So it would make sense, or maybe we weren't there and we were just covering.
Weren't there. We were there in 2010, I believe.
Okay. So, well, whatever the case may be, I don't know why we did this, and we had a couple of random episodes here and there, but officially, and we even called it this, was Canadian Gamers episode 37, The Return of Our Fantastic Podcast.
Yeah, I remember that because we used Pokemon footage of my battles, and it was like 15 or 17 minutes.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It was 14 minutes and 27 seconds was that one. And it was but here's what's interesting, man. That was May 14th, 2014. So that's really not bad. Like really not bad because from there we were fairly consistent
until because didn't we have like a year almost between that episode and the last one? Or because I know that we stopped for a while, and that one was the first one we brought to YouTube with our what we do today with his gaming footage. Before, I believe at some point you used to post the old podcast series on, I believe, COEVRs, maybe the other channel that we used to have.
Yeah.
With just like a static image.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's why. Like, so yes, there was like huge gaps or whatever. But have we actually been consistent since that date?
No. There was a time when you were like on sick leave for like 5 or 16 years.
Yeah,
that we used to do podcasts like almost every Thursday, and then it would be uploaded on Friday morning. I remember that we had the schedule. That probably lasted maybe 3 months, and then like the podcasts were super irregular, and then I had my first child, which you left you alone doing this, and you were very, very
garbage.
Like you would do like 20 minutes podcasts once every like 2 months, something like that. But I believe we started this 2 weeks, once every 2 weeks, like 2 years ago, I believe.
Well, that's what I'm trying. I mean, you asked me
because we've been consistent for a long while now that we haven't missed a single date. We've come close, but
we've come close, man.
We have not.
Yeah, there's no easy way. See, that's why I didn't do it. There was no easy way for me to check this.
Okay.
On YouTube to see like when we came back, because like it's just numbers, right? It just says like episode this, episode that, or whatever. I did have the one when we returned to iTunes though, which was episode 82, which was our Game of the Year's award. That's when we started doing what we do now, where it's published on both. So it's published on iTunes, plus it's published on...
do you have the date for that?
Yeah, December 2nd, 2016.
Okay, so it's been almost 2 years now since we've been doing back to that formula. So, because I believe all 99 episodes are available at some point online, right?
Yeah,
It's just that a lot of them are not on iTunes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was no easy way for me to put them on iTunes in order.
Yeah,
like,
there's no need to go back to and put those, but... And also, it would be funny to try and figure out how many different guests we've had here.
Oh, man.
Because I know that we had, besides you, me, and Ahmed, I know that at some episode, my brother-in-law, Marc-André, was there.
Yeah, we also had...
Patrick was there.
That's right,
Pat,
yeah.
I think he was there for one or twice. Do you still... Like, I know he's a childhood friend of mine that used to live here, and now he moved to Montreal. And do you still see him from time to time?
I don't. No, not anymore. Now it's just like I'll shoot him a message every once in a while on Facebook, stuff like that.
Okay, because I know he had a daughter, I believe, last April, or maybe just before that or after that, and he works at Warner Brothers Montreal, so it would be cool to have him on at some point if it had a time, because he actually would have something to say, and it would be perfect because we're a video game podcast called Canadian Gamers, and we'd had someone who actually works at a Canadian gaming company.
Yeah, exactly.
We also had Timothy, right, at some point?
I think so, yeah. I think he joined us once or twice, probably.
Did Justin ever make this podcast? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different people that's been on here, right? Am I missing someone?
Well, honestly, at this point, I honestly don't know. You know, like, I'd have to go back and see. But yeah, I think so. I think that's fair.
And like I told you this morning, it took us 98 episodes before we actually had a Canadian Gamers without any actual Canadians on it, which was episode 98, which Ahmed did all by his lonely sum and saved our ass because we were out of options to make that date. Like we said, we want one every 2 weeks, and either of us could do it. Ahmed came in and saved the day.
Yeah, exactly. Which, like, I was looking, because I'm having problems right now with my PC, and I need to fix this now. I have a laptop, which means I could use the quality. You know, again, the quality wouldn't be great and stuff like that. It's a newer laptop, so you're not going to hear like the fans and stuff like that. However, like for game footage, I probably wouldn't do it. It would probably be just the audio file with a static image, and that would be the end of it. And I would probably have to upload it through YouTube directly. Like it wouldn't actually have any sort of, you know, fancy editing or anything like that. Mind you, not really like it's ever had fancy editing, but yeah. So I don't know. It's been a wild ride. It's been really, really crazy. I hope we can continue to do this. I really do. And I'm actually doing the reverse now. Instead of like, you know, picking up more and more work, I'm trying to slow down because I've got school coming up, and I'm getting very nervous that the only feature I will be able to continue will be this one. Because even with Dragon Quest and stuff, unless I start to double post, meaning do I take Dragon Quest footage and use it for this, and that's it, like for Dragon Quest X, and then I'd be able to keep both things going, because otherwise I just don't see how the hell I'm ever going to have time to do this. But we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I mean, really, recording 1 hour of a podcast is not a hard thing to do. It's so long as I can get footage, it's really not a big deal. And after this podcast, I'm actually going to do a very special episode of Dragon Quest X, because it's the game's 6th anniversary on August 2nd.
Awesome. I always thought and think that this game is older than it is for some reason, because it was on the Wii. But I guess it came out at the end of the Wii's life cycle, and I know we've had this discussion before. I want to quickly mention a few of my favorite episodes. And the first one I did not check, because we did not subtitle these back in the days, but it has to be either one of, it's in the first 5 or the first 10 episodes. I know it was a really early one, and the reason I really liked that one was because I remember it was yesterday, was I told you that we had to do a podcast, and you said that there was nothing had happened today, and I told you that there was actually huge news today, and that was when Pokemon Black and White 2 were announced. And you did not realize back then, because you were not a Pokemon dude, how big that news was, because that was the first time we had a direct sequel instead of a third version, like Pokemon Gray, for example. And it was also not on the 3DS, but on the DS, when the 3DS was already almost a year old, I believe, when this was announced. So that was extremely huge news back then. And I broke it down and explained everything to you, and that was fun. I really liked that one, because it was one of the first times where I felt well when I was actually teaching a seasoned vet something for the first time. And my other one, which is one of my favorite episodes, and it's too bad we did it just a bit before these came out on iTunes, because I would like to download it and listen to it while I'm on a road trip, but it's just before, and that was when we did our top 10 video games of all time episodes, which was more than 2 hours when we did that, and I really, really enjoyed doing that episode. It was probably my all-time favorite.
Well, for me, excuse me, there's 2 things that I wanted to talk about when you said that we were going to do this episode today, and it wasn't individual episodes. I mean, maybe it is, but I don't think so. It was there's 2 different stories that you all got to experience if you've been following this long enough, and the first one is the top series. And so this was something that Steven came up with. And for a while we were doing these where it was like, you know, like top 5 RPGs, top 10 games of all time, top this, top that, top everything. And maybe this is just me hallucinating, you know what I mean? Like, it's possible, it's entirely possible that we only made 2 episodes of these, but I don't think so. If I recall correctly, like, for a little while we were going back and forth with different things. And if you don't know, Steven calls me Switzerland, because I hate coming up with like top 10 games or top 5 games or anything like that. I hate that because I always forget something. Like I always forget something, and I'm like, no, that really should have been 2, or that should have been 3, or that should have been 1, or, you know, whatever the case may be. But it's fun. It's actually fun being challenged in that way for certain like series, and I really always enjoyed those episodes, especially when
I have a cool story when you're that, before you move on to your second thing,
sure
when you
so anyways, it's just like I really enjoyed the back and forth with some of that stuff, and it's the memories that I like more than anything, is like remembering back, because I've never gone into this, and I'm not going to go into this now, but there's actually a reason why I'm such a huge fan of like The Legend of Zelda, for example. There's a reason why I got a tattoo of the Triforce, and again, I'm not going to get into all of this now, but like going back and remembering some of this stuff is, I don't know, it was special. So go ahead, say your funny story.
I just want to mention, and just to give you an example of how Jared is indecisive, and he has trouble making these kinds of decisions, which in the grand scheme of things are not really important. Like, it's just a top 10 list that you can change at any point that doesn't has like, it's just for fun. But when I was living in Hull, which I don't know how to pronounce it in English, I don't think it's possible, which is like an hour away from where Jared lives. I used to live in Quebec when I finished high school for about 2 years. We used to talk on MSN back then, and that's like 15, 16, 17 years ago. That's how long we've been talking. That's how long Jared has been enduring me. And
I know, God damn it.
I asked him a very simple question. What is your favorite video game of all time? And today, you ask him that, he'll say Link to the Past and won't even blink. It won't take him long. But back then, it took about 2 hours for him to finally give me an answer. And what he did was he gave me a title in Japanese.
I remember
and
that.
And he sent it to me, and I had to Google translate it somehow. And all it said was Legend of Zelda. That's it. That's it. And he says he wouldn't confirm it. He could not give me an answer on a simple question like that. That's how Jared was. There's still some of that left. There's a lot of that left, but now he has grown up a bit into a man, and he's able to make decisions from time with a bit of hassling. Yeah, he's able to make up his mind like a big boy now.
That's so nice of you.
I can't believe you remember that.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember some stuff, not much, but I remember some stuff. Anyway, my my second story is it's funny because you kind of ruined it, but whatever. It's the Pokemon journey, if you want to call it that.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Over the last, like, whatever it was, 2 years, 1 year, whatever it was, like getting introduced to a series when you're in your 30s is
because you thought this was a rip-off of Dragon Quest Monsters, right?
Yeah, originally, yeah, that's exactly what I thought, and I thought it was like just a kids game, you know, like a very simple sort of rip-off of Dragon Quest Monsters. That's exactly what I thought. But anyway, so it's just it's interesting, and now I know this is Canadian gamers, so some of you could fault me and say, like, well, wouldn't that be in the Nintendo Fanboys podcast? And yeah, okay, sure. And maybe I'll say this story again when we hit our 100th episode of Nintendo Fanboys, but I'm positive some of those stories would have translated into this or transferred rather into this podcast. Like, I'm positive. Like, there's no way I would have been completely quiet, like, for the entire time. So it was really cool to be able to experience, like, a brand new series when you're not a kid anymore, and actually, like, really say, wow, this is something I didn't realize. And so that and also we were doing these regularly when Dragon Quest XI came out, and I thought this was really cool too, to be able to go, like, in depth about Dragon Quest XI, knowing that, you know, it wouldn't be released in North America and Europe for like a year, and to really go into, like, what I was enjoying, what I thought could be improved, or what have you. And I'm hoping we get another chance to do that, because even you, and again, I know it would be more on the fanboy side, but like you playing Dragon Quest XI, like, on the 3DS, I thought that was pretty damn cool, man, to be able to experience that. Like literally a year. We just hit the first year milestone. Actually, not yet. When this podcast goes live tomorrow, it will be exactly 1 year since the release of Dragon Quest XI, and I thought that was just a really cool experience to be able to share with all of you.
Yeah, and you remind me of one more. Well, there's many, but one more episode that I really enjoyed. It's a really recent one, and that was when we did your gaming history.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think it's episode 95 or 96, something like that.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too.
Because you even taught me something about you that I did not know before, and I don't want to go into detail of that, but about your childhood. And I knew some of it, but I did not know the extent of it. And I really thought, I found it amazing how you grew up to be the man you are today. And I don't want to get too sentimental with what happened and how you seem to simply shrug it off, and like, yeah, I did not know that, and don't know if you had some of that you escaped through video games like most of us kids do, but like your gaming history and history in general was really interesting to me, and like I can't wait to do part 2 in the near future. That's something I wanted to mention.
Yeah, when most people find, I really enjoyed that too, and I still want to do yours. I think it would be really interesting. We'll have to get back on that, and I'll give that one a listen to see like what we, like the questions that were asked and what I said and stuff like that. My past is just really screwed up. That's what I tell everybody. I had a really let's just say interesting childhood that actually went all the way to my adulthood. Like it's just I've had an interesting life. Let's put it that way. So yeah, but all around it's been a really fun experience, and the fact that we're still doing this, like since what did we say 2012, like that's a big deal. Like and I think that really is a big deal, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we're still here. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, no, it is, especially when you think about how this all began. It's basically because of MSN and forums, insider forums. That's all. And I consider you one of my best friends now, and it's like I've seen you maybe 4 or 5 times in my life. It's just I would have never thought I'd have this relationship with someone just over MSN and forums, Skype, stuff like that. Really glad this happened, and I'm super like glad to continue this in the future. And like I said, like this is something, doing this podcast, doing these videos, really important, because video games is a hobby of mine, but it's also something that helped me when I was a kid. Like most people escape some situation. It's fun to keep doing it, and even seeing my son play video games now, and knowing that when he grows up he'll probably want to play some of my childhood games. Like it's always fun to continue sharing that passion in whatever way possible you can with you and with the community. So yeah, really glad to do this and can't wait to do more. Here's to 100 more.
Amen, man. Amen. That was really well said, Stephen. Seriously, that was really, really well said. And I share your sentiment as well. I mean, we talk literally all day. It's usually Stephen giving me shit, but it's funny.
Someone has to.
Yes, precisely. And and it's funny because, like I said, like I don't have that many friends here anymore. Everyone's gone or moved on, or you know, whatever the case may be. So it's an important relationship, and the fact that, like you said, I think it's important to actually acknowledge that you hear all these horror stories of, you know, people meeting up online and like end up getting killed and all this, like, you know, horrible things happen. And yet, like, one of the best relationships that I've actually had actually comes from, like, the Insider message boards. Like, that's completely ridiculous. Anyways, yeah, so here's to 100 more, man. That would be that would be really awesome. So you want to launch our little surprise?
Yeah. So I'm gonna explain this, and it won't be a surprise to those on YouTube because you'll see the title, but that's cool. We have 2 hardcore groups. We have the Saturn fans and the Dragon Quest fans. And Saturn fans are probably not really happy right now, but you know, that's what but Dragon Quest, like, man, we've had a huge uprising. And when Dragon Quest 11 was announced to the West officially, Jared did a bunch of videos, and it just like got up. Our subscribers were ridiculously climbing up. Like we're 400 subs away from 10K now, which is ridiculous. Insane. Never thought we'd reach that. And a lot of that is because of Dragon Quest content, and it's really fun because we just happen to have, and I'm not shy to say, the biggest Dragon Quest fan in North America, if not the world. We have him right here, and he's more than happy to do content of that. And I thought we should do our top 10 Dragon Quest games of all time video right here. What better way to celebrate our 100th episode of Canadian Gamers than by doing something I know our fans will enjoy. And before that, I just wanted to mention that while, like, I'm not a hardcore Dragon Quest fan like Jared, like, really, you'll see that from my list, but still, I think it's a valid list. Like, I've played every single Dragon Quest main series game except for 10, and when you consider people in North America, I think I'm a pretty big Dragon Quest fans in North America. It's just nowhere near what Jared is. So you'll see that I have 4 side series games in my list here, which will be blasphemous to most hardcore Dragon Quest fans. But hey, that's my list. Unfortunately, I did not grow up enabled to play Japanese games and all that. But still, I had a lot of fun with this series. It's still one of my favorite series. And you'll see that there's a lot of difference in our list, but I'm sure that I'll get some slack in the comments. But whatever, just wanted to put this disclaimer here, and you'll see that Jared's list is probably the most important one, but still, I'll give you mine just for the fun of it. So if you don't have anything else to say to this, we'll start with me, my number 10. And usually we do 10, 9, we do 1 and then 2. But now what I want to do is I'll start with 10, you'll start with 10, and we'll go there. Because I want the number 1 to be, I want it to be I want you to finish with your number 1.
Okay, sure. And I just wanted to add, don't listen to anything Steven just said. Okay, I think he's being way too harsh on himself here. His list is every bit as accurate as my list, and it doesn't matter if there's side games. I don't care if there's mobile games in there. This is a personal list for you, and the whole reason why we do these is to go through and you say like why you feel this is on your list. So don't listen to him. This is gonna be fun. So go ahead.
Okay, so I think You'll regret what you just said when you hear my number 10, which is Dragon Quest Swords, The Masked Queen, and the Tower of Mirrors for the Wii. And you texted me last night telling me that this was going to be on my list, and I sucked for it. And you're right, this is on my list. I don't know what it is about this game. I had a blast playing that game. It's a non-rails RPG. That doesn't make any sense. And you use the Wii remote and the nunchuck as a sword and a shield, so you waggle like a stupid person doing this. And I had a blast playing this. There's even super bosses at the end of the game like there are in a regular Dragon Quest game, so there's lots of love in that game. It was even a blast from the past from a Nintendo Fanboys episode. I really love this game. And it has a Metacritic of 65, so I know it's not necessarily a critically acclaimed game, but still, I don't care. I love Dragon Quest Swords, one of my favorite Wii games, and I'll say that. It's one of my favorite Wii games. Dragon Quest Swords, number 10, and I'll stand by it. Have at me.
No, there's no having at you. Honestly, I was just bugging you because I knew you really liked that game, so I knew it was going to be in your list somewhere. I just didn't know where. So for me, my number 10 is the game that started it all. Now, this is my only disclaimer that I essentially have here is, as I went through this list, I was taken back to like the individual games. Like why would Dragon Quest, the original Dragon Quest or Dragon Quest 1, why would that be on this list? Like why wouldn't I put Dragon Quest, say, Heroes? Or Heroes 2, or Dragon Quest Builders, or Dragon Quest Swords, or, any of those games? Why wouldn't I put those over the original Dragon Quest when really they're better games? You know what I mean? Like, they are. There's no denying it. Go back and play Dragon Quest 1 right now, and it's almost laughable because, like, what, a 5-hour game, 4-hour game, something like that, and you're all alone. You fight enemies one-on-one. The very last boss of the game is basically you attack, heal, attack, heal, attack, heal. That's pretty much it. And, the strategy is just staggering. But when I came to do this list, much like a lot of the lists that I do, I look at the impact that these games had on me. And the original Dragon Quest deserves to be somewhere on my top 10 list just because of just how radically different it was. And it was just so unlike anything I had ever seen before. And I'm not going to say that, oh, it's the first RPG of all time or this or that or any of that stuff. It's all irrelevant. It's just, for me, this was a game that was so unlike anything I had experienced before, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the artwork, I don't know if it was the music, I have no clue, but this was one of those games where it was just like, wow, this is an incredible game.
Cool. Okay, for me, number 9, I have Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2. And some of these names I might have not wrong. I don't remember if it's Dragon Quest Joker 2 or Monster Joker 2, but you get the idea. Mm-hmm. I I played this game when I went to Thunder Bay back then with my ex at the time, and I bought it at EB Games. I went back and played it, and I had a blast. Like, really, really, it's a more hardcore take on Pokemon. It's a game that has a lot of grinding. It has unforgiving difficulty, and it requires you to like fusion monsters together, and that's what I really loved about this one. And the only issues I have with this series in general is that I don't like how they make you catch Pokemon monsters. I would rather have them like have you throw an item at them like in Pokemon, instead of it being mostly luck based. But still, I really enjoyed that. And years later, you would buy me Joker 1, which I also really enjoyed. And that's why I want to get Joker 3 professional at some point. If Amazon Japan would stop being asses and would ship me games from time to time. But yeah, Dragon Quest Joker 2, like, really, really awesome game. And it's just too bad that these games did not sell well, so we never got Joker 3 in North America or any of the other remakes they did on the 3DS.
Yeah, that was what I was just gonna say. That was a real shame, man. That was a real shame that we didn't get any of the what is it, the 3DS Monsters games, because man, they redid like the whole series practically, and it's a real shame. Monsters series as a whole is one that I wanted on this list, but I just kept finding myself going like, ah, man, but you know, there's Dragon Quest 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 and I was like, damn it. Anyways, number 9 is my not mine, but number 9 is a game that would have scored a lot higher, I think, if I hadn't recently gone back and played through some of the series. I went last year and I started to go through them slowly but surely. And anyways, it's Dragon Quest VII. Now I know for you, Dragon Quest VII is going to be a lot higher. And the reason why it's there, like quote unquote low on my list, is only because when I replayed it on the 3DS, I had forgotten that it is a monotonous game. Now, to give people some context here, I played Dragon Quest VII when it was called Dragon Quest VII on the original PlayStation. I put in somewhere in the ballpark of 300 hours into that game. Then I played Dragon Warrior 7 on the PlayStation 1 here, and I put in somewhere in the ballpark of 300 hours. Then I played Dragon Quest VII on the 3DS, in the Japanese one, and I put in, like, I forget, that was not as high. I think it was like 120 hours or something like that.
You barely played it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I played the English version. So all this to say, it's not that none of these games are games that I don't like, obviously, or they wouldn't be in my top 10. It's just the fact that, like, I like the little short stories that they had that connected everything together. But you'll see as we go on with some of the other ones that I think I enjoyed some of the other ones more in the long run. But that's one of the ones, like you say, that tomorrow that could be higher on my list. It really depends, because overall it features a really good story, and I love the mechanic of sort of going to different times and then connecting everything together to unlock your world. What I didn't like was the same thing that Steven mentioned, I believe, in one of our reviews, or both, or review discussion, or whatever the hell we did, where you basically play through the same dungeon 15 times, and instead of it just being 15 times, you do it back to back, and that makes it very, very monotonous. But it's still, like I say, it still is a fantastic game.
Alright, for me, number 8. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce the subtitle of this one, but I have Dragon Quest Heroes. And this is a funny story, because I played this game for 40 hours. And at the end of it, I hated it. I was extremely tired of this, because this is a Dynasty Warriors game. It's like the same thing happened with Hyrule Warriors, except Hyrule Warriors was a 10 to 12 hour game, so I didn't have time to hate it. But at the end there, I was like, why am I still playing this? because for me, Dynasty Warriors type games are really fun, but they have to end quicklier than most games because they're really repetitive, and the grinding aspects of this is not as fun as an RPG in my opinion. But still, like, if I play a game for 40 hours, there has to be something right about it, and I really love the visuals of it. That was probably the first, like, next-gen Dragon Quest looking game that I played. It was actually the first, because Dragon Quest 8 was not really an HD system. And it was just fun, and I love the fact that all of those Dragon Quest classic characters, and it would be even more special for me today, now that I've played 3 more Dragon Quest games, to see some of these characters, like the characters from Dragon Quest 7, I believe. Klefki is his name, or something like that.
Kefka is it's Kiefer.
Kiefer, yeah. Like, he's in there. Like, I had no idea who these persons were back then, but now I do. And just the fact that I played with Yangoose and Jessica the whole way and had a blast. Like, Dragon Quest Heroes, really, really nice game. Just a bit too long in my opinion, but really, really well made.
Okay, so as not to talk forever here, my next, I'm gonna start to shorten some of these stories, only because, like, the top 5, I'll probably have a lot more. So number 8 is Dragon Quest 3. Dragon Quest 3 is one that could very easily crack my top 5. Well, maybe not top 5 anymore, but it's a game that you really have to experience Dragon Quest 1 and 2 in order to get the most out of Dragon Quest 3. When it introduced classes, and I'm not even going to talk about the Famicom version, any of these versions, and the fact that you played as the legendary hero, spoiler, that was just so unexpected, and it was such a unique departure from the other 2 games that it's understandable why to this very day Dragon Quest 3 in Japan is frequently voted like one of the top 5 games of all time. Here, it's not going to crack like the top 100 games of all time. In North America, I doubt it. But it's such an influential RPG. It really did change the way role-playing games were played from that point forward. Just, I can't even express, like, classes, advanced classes, all of this sort of stuff at that time period was just unheard of. And I don't even remember if there were advanced classes or not, but just the fact that you had classes and teams and all of this stuff, like, it was an incredible game. And then story-wise, to find out that you yourself were the legendary hero and that the story that you were playing was one that highlighted everything that you had heard about from Dragon Quest 1 and 2 is just absolutely awesome.
Alright, for me at number 7 I have Dragon Quest Builders, and this is my last spin-off in here, but I originally played the PlayStation 4 version of this game for like 5 minutes, and I thought this was complete crap. I could not even play it for more, but when it came for the Switch I was hooked, like many games are, because I just had the opportunity to play it everywhere, and I found out quickly that this was very fun. And I did a review of this, and so did you, and my main gripe with this game is that it's not as Minecrafty as I would like it to be, because I really enjoyed Minecraft. I haven't played it in years, but I really did enjoy it back in the day, and I wish Dragon Quest Builders was just a tiny bit more like it, but it isn't, and some people will prefer that, and that's totally cool. But I really enjoyed the fact that it was a Minecraft game in a Dragon Quest universe, and just was such a blast to play. The story wasn't bad either. It's not like gonna win any awards, but it was really a nice distraction. And just, yeah, Dragon Quest Builders, we both have a review on it if you want more on this game, but it was a really, really awesome game. It probably will be in my top 10 games of the year this year.
Yeah, that was the one, man, that I really wanted on the list. I really wanted Builders on the list, but again, I was like, damn it, I don't want to knock any of these other games. Urgh. Anyway, Dragon Quest 9 is my number 7. So when Ahmed listens, he's going to cry, because that's like pretty much his favorite Dragon Quest game of all time. And why it's here is because it was such a radical departure from the rest of the series, and at first I was kind of like, you know, coming off of Dragon Quest 8, I mean, Dragon Quest VIII is a beautiful and stunning game. And then to find out that it was for the DS, I was like, what? But that didn't stop me from importing it and playing it for hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I loved the DLC aspects, the grottos and all of that. But the one thing that I wanted to experience more so than anything else, and I never had the opportunity, was the multiplayer. I think it would have been absolutely outstanding to have been able to play this game with Steven. I think would have, both of us, this game probably would have been in our top 3. If we would have been able to go through all the download content, fight the super bosses together, would have been absolutely amazing. But I never had that opportunity because around me, there was nothing, like there was no one that I could actually experience this with. So as a single player game was still good. It's just that it felt a little bit generic with the characters and stuff. So it was just really unfortunate that we didn't live closer together to really experience that game.
Yeah, that's probably why it didn't make my list, because I wasn't, as soon as you got into the opportunity to recruit characters and they were just basically NPCs, generic ones, I don't know why I just could not get myself into playing more of it, which is unfortunate, because maybe we will have the chance to play it together at some point, because I think this is not, it has nothing to do with the internet, right? It's just local play.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay, so maybe at one point we'll be able to do that, but maybe it'll be on my list when we do that, probably. But unfortunately I never gave it much of a chance. I played like maybe 10 hours of the game, for some reason stop. Alright, for me, number 6, more recent Dragon Quest entry, and that's Dragon Quest 11. And really sucks what happened with this game, because if I would have done something simple, which would have been to make the battles autoplay or something like that, I think I would have finished it, because I was like almost 30 hours in the game and I stopped because the language barrier was getting ridiculous. And I know you were there to help me, but I'm the type of guy who really doesn't like to always stop, ask, and then or read the guide or figure out where to go. And that's what happens here, because of everything is exclusively in Japanese in that game, and it really was hampering my gameplay experience. That's unfortunate. But when the English version finally comes to the Switch, because unfortunately I don't think I have the PlayStation 4 version pre-ordered. I'm gonna buy it. There's of course, because I want to support this series, I want to make sure it grows here, but I don't think I'll have much opportunity to play it. I even God of War, Spider-Man, Red Dead Redemption 2 are all games that I really want to play, but like I said, it's really hard for me to play games on a console with the lifestyle that I have recently. So I'm not sure what I'll do, and I know it's sacrilege. I'll probably wait for the Switch version. But still, I've experienced this game for 30 hours now, and really loved what I see. And I know that when I play the full version of it, it will probably be near the top of my favorite Dragon Quest games.
Yeah, man, it's unfortunate that, but I mean, it's also completely understandable. I mean, it is. And to be honest with you, when Dragon Quest 11 hits, I will be in school, and it very likely will be like a game that I cannot play to the degree that, let's say, I would want to play it. And I know we get a lot of fans that ask me, different questions about this, that, but I've literally done everything you can do in Dragon Quest 11, like literally everything that you can do. So me not experiencing the English version isn't technically that big of a deal. The last time that I have done something like that was Dragon Quest 9. Dragon Quest 9 was the last time where, when the English version came out, I didn't spend that much time with it. And I remember back then certain people were like, what, why, type of thing, and more on like message boards and stuff like that. And the reason being, again, is like, well, guys, if you've put in hundreds and hundreds of hours into something, well, and your schedule doesn't align or whatever, Like, it's not really a big deal. I've already played the crap out of it. But anyways, I mean, I'm hoping, of course, I get a chance to. And I mean, it's me. I'm a huge fan of this. But also, I have to be realistic that, like, I cannot screw around with school. I'm paying, like, almost $100,000 for this school. I'm not about to fail. So anyway, number 6 is... This is where it gets a little weird for me. Number 6 is Dragon Quest VI. Dragon Quest VI used to be my favorite Dragon Quest game. For years, it was my favorite Dragon Quest game. And the reason why is because I absolutely loved the whole concept of the dual world. It reminded me so much of, I was going to say Dragon Quest, of A Link to the Past. And at that particular point in time, the Super Famicom was where it was at. And RPGs were just getting... I don't want to say mainstream, but more people were talking about them. You had your Chrono Triggers, Final Fantasy 6 or 3 as it was called here. You had Super Mario RPG. Games like this were really starting to get people in North America to talk about this particular genre. And I was so upset because I was like, damn it, you know, we missed Dragon Quest V. We missed Dragon Quest VI. We missed the remakes of Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, this is the friggin' worst. But Dragon Quest VI remains an absolutely excellent game that it's just unfortunate that even with the 3D, with the DS remakes of 4, 5, and 6, I still feel that it really hasn't had a chance to truly shine. And I really am a big fan of Dragon Quest VI. I think it's a little bit of an underdog for, I don't know why, for some reason.
Okay, me at number 5, and I don't want to talk about that one, you'll know why later.
Yeah, sure.
I have Dragon Warrior. This, and I've talked about this, I don't know if it's in gamers or fanboys. This game used to scare the crap out of me when I was a kid, because my mom and my neighbor would play this game, and you'd hear the music, and I can hear it in my head still, and every time a monster would come out, and I had never played an RPG before, I had no idea what was going on. The monster would attack you, and then the farther you'd get, the stronger the monsters were, but you did not know why. And then when the screen got red, the music got suddenly even more scarier, and then you would die, and the game would make you feel like a loser. And I was terrified of this game as a child. And I have so many good memories of that for some reason now. And I would play it. I would eventually play it a lot more. Never was able to beat the game because, like I say that a lot of times, most of my NES cartridges, the save files would get erased for some reason, because apparently you're supposed to hold the reset and power button when you close your NES off to not to lose those files. I don't know if you were doing that, but I never was, and that's like, I have no idea how many times I've restarted The Legend of Zelda and NES with my mom, and got to Ganon only to realize the next day that my save file was completely gone. Like that happened with Dragon Warrior when I was like a lot of hours into that game, because I was grinding a lot and I sucked at it. It's not until like, I don't know if it's in 2013 or 2014 or 2012 when you bought me Dragon Quest 1 plus 2, the Repro SNES cartridge, that I finally was able to complete the original Dragon Quest game. But yeah, really, really love that, and it's probably a bit higher on my list than most because of the nostalgia of like the experience. I was very young, seeing my mom and her friend play that game, and just the music, and just I had no idea what was going on as a young kid, and it scared the crap out of me, and it stressed me out going farther into the woods, because I knew that eventually I would hit those orange ghost type creatures that would just destroy me, or those witches, and it just scared the crap out of me. And by witches I mean the ghost with the witch hat.
I can't help but laugh at this, because he keeps saying, like, you know, as a child. So how much progress have you made in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis?
I was almost done with that game, damn it. Almost done. Just that damn Nemesis doesn't mind his own business.
Steven is the biggest coward in the world when it comes to games. It's awesome. Okay,
But
my number
still,
five.
Dragon Warrior is not typically a game that someone would qualify as scary.
No, it is not. It is not at all. But no, but it's funny. I like that. That's a good story. So my number 5 is Dragon Quest V, and I think you'll see a pattern here. Number 6 was Dragon Quest 6. Number 5 is Dragon Quest V. So Dragon Quest V, I'm gonna talk a lot about this eventually when I finish off if I finish off the last playthrough that I went, because I want to review that one. I believe that's one that we're missing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to talk too much about that, but it's just when this came out, it clearly was developed for the Famicom, and when the Super Famicom came out, they were sort of like, okay, well, I guess, it's probably like been a year and a half that the Super Famicom's out, and they're like, yeah, maybe we should switch gears and put it on that. And I'm going to be wrong with the dates or whatever. It still looked primitive, but significantly better than Dragon Quest 1 through 4. But the thing with Dragon Quest V was the fact that you played through a lineage, and that was so unique. And again, you have to remember here, we had Dragon Quest 3 that was such a unique experience. Dragon Quest 4, which is coming up, that was something special. Dragon Quest 5 now coming out and being something different, something completely different, and still really, really fun and unique. And I was really on a high at that particular point, because I was like, this series is just getting better and better and better, and I was like, it's never going to end. And even 6, when 6 came out, it was just an incredible game. But Dragon Quest V, really, this is one of the ones that I recommend people start the series with if you want to go back. You'll see when I get into the top ones which ones I would really recommend people begin with. But if you're looking at more from a historical purpose, Dragon Quest V is an incredible game, and you could do a lot worse with some of these other games. So Dragon Quest V, my number 5.
Alright, at number 4, I have the only numbered series that lines up perfectly with my pick, which is Dragon Quest IV. And this one has really an unfortunate story for me, because this is a game I put a lot of hours into, but never was able to finish it because of a stupid thing that happened, which was I used to leave my DS Lite right on my mattresses. It fell in the garbage bin right beside my bed, and I was living in my parents back then, and my dad cleaned out the garbages, and my DS Lite with my copy of Dragon Quest IV is somewhere in the dump here, forever lost, unfortunately. I did manage to pick up another copy of Dragon Quest IV over the years, but still never really went back to it, which is unfortunate, because it might be my number 1 if I did, because I remember having a blast, being completely addicted to the game, and just the fact that you were playing, I don't know, I think you were playing with 4 different characters. I believe it was on the 4th one. Is it 4 or 5?
The chapters, there's 4 chapters.
4 chapters, okay.
I believe.
And it was just really, really, really fun, especially the chapter where you play as a merchant. It's just an unbelievable game, and I still probably the Dragon Quest game I would recommend the most, because it's the one that's the easiest to access to, I believe, in terms of just difficulty and fun factor. Of course, the farther you go, the difficulty ups, but it's just really, I think this one, some Dragon Quest game, it takes a few hours to get into it. This one, I think, from the beginning is a blast to play.
Well, I don't have anything else to add. Dragon Quest IV was also my number 4, and that was the final one where the numbers matched up. That's why I thought it was kind of funny. 6 was 6, 5 was 5, 4 is 4. I agree with everything you just said. 4 is one of the best Dragon Quest games to get into, and it's so easy to get into, and the remaster version is nice because it adds a different chapter, which is kind of cool. So you get to play as Sorrow and stuff like that, which was neat. It was really neat. Now, you need to think that this was a Famicom game. That's what a lot of people tend to forget. So, right hot off the heels of playing as the legendary, Erdrick, we'll say, so people know the North American lingo, that like I was like, you can't get better than this. You know what I mean? Like at that point, I was like, Dragon Quest 3 is where it's at, and then Dragon Quest 4 comes out and just literally blows my mind in the fact that it was the most cinematic game I had ever played at that point in time. And people always say like Ninja Gaiden and stuff, you know, being cinematic, but for me, it was Dragon Quest 4. The fact that you played through these different chapters that focus solely on heroes, like these specific heroes, and then in the end they come together to fight this true evil force. I mean, it was incredible. It really was. And if you want to start with Dragon Quest 4, you go for it, because it's a brilliant game.
Okay, and number 3, and this one will surprise you maybe. I believe when we did our top 10 video games of all time, I had this actually on the list. And that's how the 3DS version, I don't know why, screwed my nostalgia of that game. And it's Dragon Quest 8. I still feel Dragon Quest 8, fantastic game, especially the PlayStation 2 version. When it came out, that was actually what I consider to be my first Dragon Quest experience, because I had played other Dragon Quest games, but this is the first one I ever beat, and this is the first one I ever put a lot of hours into it. I was actually really hyped for it when it came out, and reviewed it for the site back then, which I always mention. It gives you a laugh for some reason. Adored this game back then on the PlayStation 2. Thought it was phenomenal. Thought that the fact that the overworld looked exactly the same as in the dungeons, like the visuals, like you have to remember when Final Fantasy 7, how amazing it looks. When you're on the overworld, it still looks shitty, like but in Dragon Quest 8, the looks still the same. I thought that was incredible back then. And then I played the 3DS version, and I still put over like 60 hours into it. I still beat it. I still had fun with it. Still thought it was a great game. But man, the fact that they removed the random encounters, and that's another issue I have. Random encounters in RPGs is such a dirty word for no reason. Everybody's trying to get away with it. And I'm playing right now Octopath Traveler, and it has random encounters, and it's done perfectly. The only reason people don't like random encounters is when they're too frequent. That's all. In Octopath, they're perfect. And that's all I'm going to say. They removed random encounters, which means that I was seriously underleveled at all times, because I was not going into the fights. I was just, because the monsters were really easy to avoid. And people will say, well, you're stupid to do that. And you're right. But still, like, if a game is designed with random encounters, you should leave it at that. Pokemon still has random encounters to this date, and I hope they never remove it. And it's not broken, don't fix it. And that's the only reason I believe why I not hate, but Dragon Quest 8 is not as high on my list anymore because of that. Also, the voice acting was as good in the 3DS version. The actress that did Jessica, I think, is retired or something, did not redo the lines for her. Dolmagus, for some reason, it's just either I was on crack when I played the original game, or they changed it. It just, I love Dolmagus when I played Dragon Quest 8 on the PlayStation 2, and here he sounded very generic for some reason. So Dragon Quest 8 still number 3 on my list, so it's still, I consider it a masterpiece. Still love it, but it would have been number 1 like a few years ago before I played the 3DS version. For some reason, did not like it as much as I remembered, and it's now not. It doesn't have the same place in my heart as it did years ago. But still, it's my number 3 game.
This is going to be very interesting to see your top 2. I'm curious, because I haven't even been paying attention, like, I mean, I'm listening to you, obviously, but I haven't been, like, following along of which ones you've said and which ones you haven't. So this is going to be interesting. My number 3 is your number 3 as well, is Dragon Quest 8. I think it's one of the finest JRPGs ever created. I mean, I was very skeptical when coming off of Dragon Quest 7, which again, if you look at my list, you might be like, well, he didn't like it or whatever. Like Steven said, I am one of the biggest Dragon Quest fans out there, and all of these games I absolutely adored. And Dragon Quest 7 on the PlayStation 1, I absolutely adored it. And when it was announced that Level 5, who were relatively new back then, that they were going to develop Dragon Quest VIII and it was going to be full 3D, I was very skeptical of how that would turn out. And the end result was nothing short of spectacular. And it was also one of those times where the post-game content, this is where it like really started, where you find out about the hero in the post-game. And I thought that was brilliant. And that's the only thing with Steven that I find unfortunate, is that because one of the best storylines is kept for the end of the game. If you don't know, I'm not going to spoil anything, of course, but Dragon Quest VIII focuses on your party members and about the story of how they all come together and how Dual Magus and this other evil sort of, you know, impacted all of their lives. But there's one character that you find out virtually nothing about, and that's the main hero. You don't really know much about him. You know that he was a palace guard, but that's pretty much all you know. And when you finish the game, you unlock this entirely new village that you can go and visit, and it fleshes out his entire backstory. And I remember back in the day being very perplexed why they left this to the end, only to find out, you know, years later that it was a reward for fans to go back and experience more of the game. Now, they had done this with Dragon Quest VII as well, like where you fought God. Literally, that's what the character's name was, God. So it's not the first time that they had done it, but it's just that in terms of story, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible, and to this day, I think it's one of the finest JRPGs of all time. And that's why I say it's disappointing for Steven, from my perspective, because you didn't experience that, and it's a damn shame because I think you really, really would have loved that.
Yeah, for sure I would. I just hate grinding, and I know that I had trouble with the final boss at the end because of what I said, the no random encounters, and I know that I would have to grind even more to be able to do some of the stuff. So my number 2 is Dragon Quest VI, which when I played this, I remember you were like, this is the best Dragon Quest game ever. You, like you said in the beginning of this video, or this top 10 list, that you used to consider this your favorite Dragon Quest games because of the similarities with A Link to the Past. And I simply adored this game. I reviewed it. I think I'm the one who has a review of it, although it's, unfortunately, I have to be honest about it, the review is not really good. It's one of my first reviews I ever did, and back then I didn't have any script. I would just ramble on, and it shows. It's not really good, but still, Dragon Quest VI, really awesome. What I really love about that game is the job system, which is really, I think 7 made it even better than what it is in 6. Is you basically, and it's similar, Octopath, similar thing. I love this reward system that rewards you for selecting a job and then going into battles and using that character, and then you would upgrade, learn new skills, and then master that class and then move along. That was simple but really fun. And also, like Jared said, I also really liked that there were dual worlds. Basically, I think the second one was a dream world, right? That you had to go in dreams, and you were able to, you used a flying bed to travel in that game. Really fun game. Dragon Quest VI, it's available on the DS, so you can play it on the DS or the 3DS. Amazing one. You should play it.
Yeah, so now I know you're number 1. Very interesting. This is very, very interesting. So my top 3, I think, I don't think these are going to change. I'll be really honest with you. I really don't think my top 3 are going to change. I wasn't sure with 8 in terms of long-term status and stuff, but I think these are going to stay like this now for years. Number 2 is Dragon Quest XI. Dragon Quest XI, you will soon experience, you guys. I had waited years for another console-based Dragon Quest game. It was like, I forget when Dragon Quest VIII came out, but I mean it was well, here, let's just quickly
2005.
Well, there you go, 2005. So I waited, what, 12 years for another game to follow up Dragon Quest VIII. and I finally got it last year with Dragon Quest XI. And the fact that they connected it in with the original trilogy made this all the better. But the fact that the gameplay was just awesome, the fact that the world was huge, the fact that they made a 3DS version that had a 2D version plus a 3D version plus the PlayStation 4 version with this lush, beautiful environment. I was
lied.
like,
It was 2004. Sorry.
so 2004, so 13 years. It was just like just that. I was like, this is it. Like, because I honestly, I didn't think anything would surpass Dragon Quest VIII for me. I was like, I think that's going to remain like the de facto Dragon Quest game. And then for 11 to come out and do what it did, seriously, I cannot express how awesome of a game it is. And the fact that the post-game content is longer than some full games, and that the grinding is completely removed because of one trick. Because they know that the hardcore fans want to grind and like want to unlock all these skills and stuff. And there's still one element that you could grind for, but levels is not one, because there's now something that you can do that can skip 40 levels at the end of the game, like in no time at all. And it just, that post-game content floored me, like just floored me. And I know I've said it like literally dozens of times in different videos, but you guys absolutely 100% must play the game when the credits end, because if you don't, you will miss out on one of the very best tales ever told. And I honestly now I have no idea what they're going to do with Dragon Quest 12. I cannot imagine how they will like top this. And again, going back and saying that they made 3 versions of this game blows my mind. Like I cannot get over how unbelievable each version of this game is. It's just unbelievable. It's incredible.
Wow, your number one will be very controversial. All right. So for me at number one, and I think you had this at number 9, right? Dragon Quest 7.
Yep.
And I never thought I'd say this, because of all the games I mentioned, this is the one that probably has the most flaws. We've talked about this. You mentioned it before, but when we played this, when the North American version came out of the 3DS, we had a podcast and we talked about Dragon Quest 7. I believe it was a Gamers or maybe a Fanboys, and I said that I hated the fact that they made you go back and do every single dungeon at least 4 times. And I'm not exaggerating. Every single dungeon, if you complete the game, you'll do them 4 times. And I thought, like, they clearly did some of the things they did in Dragon Quest 7 because they wanted this game to be a long game. They wanted the game to be because back then, and still sometimes is today, gamers think that the length of a game is important. It really isn't. And they wanted this to be as long as possible. So they wanted a 50-hour game to be 100 hours. And actually, if you talk about the PlayStation version, it's probably an 80-hour game. They wanted it to be 150 hours, because if I would have played the original version and only the original version, like, this game would not even have made my top 10, let me tell you. I know all the things they added to the 3DS version and why it's so much better. Like, just the fact that you have, I believe, a radar that tells you where the tomes are, or the fractured whatever are.
Yep.
Like, I would not have liked this if I wouldn't have that option right there. And even with all of its flaws, I keep going back to how much I absolutely adored these characters. And it's funny because most people play RPGs for their stories, and I'm weird like that. I don't really care about the stories. Stories will help, but it's the gameplay that really matters. And the class system that was featured in 6 is so much improved here. And I had such a blast mastering all the class and then advancing into the super classes, and it's all you helped me understand that, and you told me what to do and what not to do and what classes to use, and really made me enjoy the game so much more. And I just had such a blast playing through the game, and the story was cool too, to be honest. It's just, I adored the gameplay, I really did, and I just don't know what more to add. If there was, of all these games I've mentioned, if there was one game that I had to go back to and wipe my memory of it and start fresh, I would want it to be Dragon Quest VII. That's a game on the 3DS that I would like to experience again for the very first time. Out of all these, that's the one I would like to do the most. And I've put almost 90 hours into that game. And I don't know why, even though it's probably the most flawed Dragon Quest game out there, it's my favorite. And it's just the way it is.
No, that's a really interesting pick, and what's really funny is that you never had the opportunity to experience the monster classes, because that's where things get really crazy, and you have to collect monster hearts, and I'm fairly certain you wouldn't enjoy that, only because of the fact that it's so grindy, you know what I mean? Like, it's just non-stop grinding, but it's still, it's just to show you that what you experienced was not the tip of the iceberg, but like you got a good chunk of the experience. It's just that there is an even more complex version of the classes once you start looking into monster classes and stuff like that.
I want to quickly mention, not to sound like a hypocrite, because I did mention that I hated the fact that Dragon Quest VIII removed random battles. Dragon Quest VII did the same thing. But the difference here is that the battles are almost impossible to dodge in this one, and I don't know why they did not keep that system. But I think you'll agree with me here that, like, even though it's not random battles, like, it's pretty much is when a monster spawns, like, you can try to avoid him, but 1 out of 10 times you won't be successful. So that's why I thought, like, I didn't mind it in this one.
Yeah, that's actually good that you mentioned that, because someone would have called you out on that. And I think it's also the fact that the way they designed the game, it's not open as much. Like in Dragon Quest VIII, there was a lot of very open areas, so the environments were sometimes very, very big in terms of dungeons and stuff. You had a lot of running room, whereas with Dragon Quest VII, it wasn't linear, not at all, but the hallways were just slightly skinnier, and I found that the enemy run rate was a lot higher. So like you said, once an enemy spawned and took notice of you, you pretty much were going to fight. Like there was nothing you could do about it. So, okay, my number one. What is my number one?
It's Dragon Quest X.
Yeah, Dragon Quest X. And it's funny that you say that it would be controversial.
Yeah, I just want to explain quickly. Because it's an MMO. And I know... And I listened to Colin Moriarty a lot. And he's not really that huge of a Dragon Quest fan, but he's enjoyed the series from time to time. But he always mentions and laughs about Dragon Quest X and how crappy it is. And I would love it if he would one day meet you and realize that... like, you're the biggest hardcore fan. You've played every one of them. You've put like 300 hours into each of them almost, if not more. And your favorite would be an MMO. And that's just how... that speaks to the quality of this game, and that people should not just think of this as another MMO.
Yeah, so... Here's the short version, because I don't want to be talking about this like forever, you can go and watch my review for an understanding of it. This isn't an MMO. That is the biggest issue that I have with this. This is an RPG. It's basically saying, was Dragon Quest IX an MMO?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
You know, like, no, it wasn't. The thing is, it's what did I say when I mentioned Dragon Quest IX? I said that had you and I played this together, this likely would be in like my top 3. And I stand by that. I do stand by that. So now imagine a Dragon Quest game set up similar to Dragon Quest VII, so that you have these small, bite-sized stories, and it never ends. It's like every time there's like some new update or whatever, there's some new land that opens up. So now you get to go and explore and experience all these new little stories and this and that. But there also are these super bosses, there are these dungeons, there's these events that pop up every week that allow you to bring your real life friends into the mix and enjoy. It's like taking Dragon Quest IX and throwing it online so that the whole world could get to experience this. And it's like a living, breathing, non-stop Dragon Quest universe. All the witty charm, all your puffs, all your nuts, crazy crap that you could possibly imagine is all in one game. And it just doesn't stop. I've been playing now for, almost 3 years, I think it is. And it's a weekly thing. Every week I go on there for 2 hours, and it's not much. I mean, it's life. That's, unfortunately, I don't have that much time. But every week, Cranberry's on there, and the two of us now we have Japanese players that join us, like Mei. We also have Mimes, which she's not a Japanese player, but another one joining us. We've got Matt. We've got all these people, but it's not necessary. That's the thing. You can play it like Dragon Quest IX, where you can rent these generic characters out. And if you don't want generic characters, well, then you can just, if you befriend people, you can go ahead and rent out your friends' characters. And it's just, what did it for me really is all the events. It's the fact that like there's a Christmas event, a New Year's event, there's retro events, there's you name it, man. And that's what really pushes this over the edge. I mean, when Dragon Quest XI came out, Sylvia actually pops up in Dragon Quest X and is like, oh, here, to say thank you for playing Dragon Quest XI, we're going to give you some furniture for your house. Like, what? Like, it's insane. And the fact is that it is still going strong. It's still one of Square Enix's #1 money-making games. And it's still a turn-based game. It's just that they've added more of a real-time mechanic to it. So in other words, when you get sucked into battle, you can move around, but you can't really, like, if an enemy's going to attack you, he's going to run up to you and attack you. But all commands are still text-based. It's just, so it's not really turn-based, it's text-based is what I wanted to say. But if you just stand there and you don't input any commands, well, you're going to just get attacked over and over and over and over again. But really, for me, this is what makes Dragon Quest X so special, is the fact that it is like a never-ending, ultimate, living, breathing Dragon Quest universe. And honestly, I don't know what the future holds for Dragon Quest X, and by this time tomorrow, we will have an update, so we'll know the future of the Dragon Quest series for the next year at least. And I can't believe that Colin actually says this is garbage. Has he actually ever played it?
No, he hasn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. See, that's the #1 thing that I hear from Dragon Quest fans is like, oh god, I can't believe they did this. This is garbage. But if you haven't played it, then you can't really say, Anyways, that's it. That's my #1 is Dragon Quest X.
Do you think they'll do like Final Fantasy and they'll do another MMO every 2 or 3 iterations?
Well,
Dragon Quest 12 could be like Dragon Quest 10. Maybe that's what they'll do, since this is their biggest money maker, like you say.
It's funny. Cranberry and I talk a lot about that, about like what happens like later. Like, so for those that don't know, Final Fantasy 11, that was the first MMO that they made for Final Fantasy, is still online. Like, you can still go start a new character and play online in Final Fantasy XI if you'd like. They just no longer release new expansions and stuff like that for the game. So I don't think Dragon Quest X is like going to end anytime soon. Final Fantasy XI is significantly older than Dragon Quest X, and it's still online. So I think if I'm not mistaken, they said they had a 10-year life cycle for it, for Dragon Quest X, which means it's going to be wrapping up soon. So if it's not, I would be surprised if it was Dragon Quest 12. I'm leaning more towards Dragon Quest 13 myself. I think that's what they're going to do. And it's not like it's going to be a sequel or anything like that. It'll just be a new MMO in the Dragon Quest universe. That's it.
All right.
So that's it, man. We had an hour and 40-minute podcast. Good Lord.
That's going to be a bitch to upload for me to you. Just
Yes.
audio will take me hours.
It is. So we're going to wrap this up by saying thank you all very much for all the support over the years. And thank you to Steven, too. That this has been a real wild ride, and I can't wait for another 100 episodes.